good girl complex is a trauma-based set of beliefs unconsciously adopted by women to uphold a sexist gender stereotype that ensures the compliance and submission of women's free will and identity. What you might think of as only people-pleasing is actually a complex framework that creates severe psychological, mental, and emotional damage that can inhibit a woman's professional and personal growth and keeps her trapped in abusive loops. This is the definition of good girl complex I wrote myself in my notes app, which is why I'm looking down. My name is Kirsty and welcome back to another episode of Good Girls in Remission, the podcast where good girls come to seek repentance for the sins they've committed as good girls. I am making this video because the outset of the GGC is so prevalent and unseen that often all it takes is just one person pointing it out to you in order for you to start the process of totally unraveling the shackles of the good girl complex. In this episode, we're going to uncover the hidden costs of the GGC, an abbreviation I made up because it's just quicker to say, why you need to break yourself from the shackles of it, and how you can do so. I personally think when people hear the GGC term, they think of it as superficial, as very surface level, as it just being girls saying yes to something maybe they don't want to do, but that's life, hey? Life is compromise. We all have to do things that we don't want to do. We all have to struggle at some point, and that's just part of being a responsible grown adult. However, at its root, the GGC is actually fraught with many mental health challenges. On this channel, we talk a lot about breaking free from the good girl conditioning. The reason why I like talking about this subject so much on my channel is because when I listen to basic manifestation content or self-development, it never addresses this problem. Personally, I used to always think there was something wrong with me. None of these manifestation things were working for me. I couldn't get the life that I wanted. I was struggling with my relationships. I couldn't make the money in the way that I wanted to. I was caught in this excessive self-development loop that was actually keeping me stuck in the identity of not being good enough. That is one of the key root problems of the GGC. It's this obsessive feeling of just never being good enough. People think that's just the plight of perfectionism. That's a you problem. It's actually not. It is actually a conditioning that we place on women that you have to self-sacrifice, that you absolutely have to put yourself last, put other people ahead of you because that's your job. That's what women do. And this is the problem that's causing so many mental health problems in women, identity crisis. It's what's causing women to no longer want to have children anymore. A lot of women are staying single now because they're not willing to compromise anymore on their mental health as they freaking should. The constructs of gender stereotypes are breaking down for both men and women. The GGC can be likened akin to the good guy complex in a man. This is a manipulative framework that men adhere to in order to be seen and perceived as a good guy. Women do this too, however, the outset is a little bit different. It's a bit nuanced. When it comes to the GGC, manipulation is involved, yes. However, it involves a lot of talking down on yourself, a lot of compromise, a lot of changing yourself in order to be seen as the dream woman, in order to be chosen. Whereas the good guy complex is often manipulative in the way that they expect to be seen as a god, as a savior, perhaps sometimes, as this amazing, unique person who can help you, who is unlike every other bad guy out there, and still expects you to compromise on your needs and desires because he's such a good guy. In his brain, he's thinking that he's doing all he can. So he's thinking, you shouldn't ask me for more because then that makes me feel underappreciated. And his identity of being the good guy is challenged. So therefore the outsets are different. This is a generalization. I'm very aware of that. And there are nuances, as I said again, between both the genders. This is all very generally speaking. In an interview that was had with psychologist Dr. Susan Albers, she explains that women with good girl syndrome are sensitive to the feedback of other people. It can become a vicious cycle. It creates mental health issues, and mental health issues exacerbate good girl syndrome. So you're stuck in self-abnegation, which is where you sacrifice yourself for another person. One thing that I find very interesting is the nuanced layers to this as well. We have the party of resistance, normally known as the independent girlies, the independent baddies, right? The hustlers that I'm going to do it on myself. I don't need a man. Nothing wrong with it. They take the approach of the antagonist. So rather than depending on a man, which is what women were pushed to do originally, they find independence now. This could be all well and good, except for the fact that because it's in resistance to this core concept, this core GGC, I find that at times it can actually play into and exacerbate the suffering of women. Patriarchal men love to be feminists when it supports the suffering of women. No, I'm not going to pay for your meal because you're an independent woman now and you can pay for yourself. No, I'm not going to open the car door for you because you have 2 hands. Do it yourself. In comes the pandemic of hyper independence in women, in which they can no longer not only not rely on themselves, but also now not rely on their community because they are encouraged to be strong, independent women who can fight for themselves. I need to clarify, this is not me condemning independent girlies in any way, shape, or form. There is nothing wrong with it. It's a great thing to strive for. My only problem with it is when people use it against women to say, you have to suffer even more now because this is what you've chosen. Women have been suffering in a state of dysregulation and identity loss for centuries, since the birth of patriarchy. In my opinion, I don't think society would benefit from a matriarchy. I also think that idea is outdated. I do believe that collectively we're all better off when we can balance the energies of the masculine and feminine in its most healthiest of ways. So if we have the GGC and then we have the independent girlies, and yet that can also be used to exacerbate the suffering of women, what exactly do we need to break free of the shackles from this traumatic complex that so many women are subjected to? The key concept in breaking free from the GGC is to actually not give a fuck about what other people think. And that's way easier said than done, because if a woman was to not care about what other people think, and for example, in some parts of certain countries, wear what she wanted to wear, she would have to experience the consequences of a man's insecurity in that moment. Because of his sense of entitlement, he may see that as an opportunity to take advantage of that woman. So you might say, well, women just need to stop being so insecure. Women just need to stop caring what other people think. It's not that simple. There are consequences. My solution that I found that works for me, and for women doing my programs as well, is to create a new self-concept and regulate your nervous system so that you can feel safe to actually step into the version or the person that you want to be, the woman that you want to be. Because I know it's not as simple as just not caring what other people think. There's a process to that. As a form of safety, you do, as a woman, have to care about what other people think, because if you're a woman who has built your life on the GGC, and let's say you have a whole family, you got children, your husband, based off the GGC, that marriage, that family could crumble at any second. Don't be ridiculous, you might say. That's just being so negative. But people don't want to say it, but it's the truth. Because imagine if that woman started putting her foot down and saying, no, I don't want to compromise anymore. I don't want to put you first all the time. I need more me time. I need more time to pour on myself. Yes, I want to spend my money on a spa treatment. Yes, I want to relax. I don't want to struggle. I don't want to hustle. I want this. I want that. I think it goes without saying that a lot of those families would crumble because they're so used to having that woman perform for them at all times. And women know that if they were to give up that complex, they would lose it all. So not only is it that women are in a state of dysregulation, they don't even know they're in a state of dysregulation. They don't even know it. They are asleep to it. So here's what I'm going to do to wake you up. I'm going to point out some of the costs of staying shackled to the GGC. I'm going to start with struggling with identity formation. There is an inner conflict, a significant disconnect between one's true self and the self presented to the world, which inhibits personal growth and the expression of your core desires. This repression can lead to depression, amplified feelings of frustration, emotional trauma due to fear of shame, and a strong desire for perfectionism. Struggle with mental health issues. The constant fear of disappointing others or stepping out of line can be paralyzing. Low self-esteem, caused by persistent doubt about one's worth as a human being, unless conforming to societal standards, fueled by fear of judgment or criticism. It impacts your relationships. The avoidance of conflict leads to codependent relationships where individuals may fail to assert their needs or establish healthy boundaries. This can also, in severe cases, lead to many emotionally, physically, and sexually abusive relationships in which women struggle to break out of the loop because they have not been taught that it is safe to assert boundaries. Suppressed personality. Only the accommodating side is visible to friends and partners, leaving deeper, possibly imperfect parts hidden. Lack of authenticity. There we go. Critical self-view, amplified feelings of frustration, etc. Not only this, it can lead to professional implications. The underestimation in the workforce. Women suffering from the GGC often struggles with asserting themselves in professional settings due to a fear of criticism and rejection, which is very real, by the way. This can lead to their capabilities and contributions being underestimated, which often hampers their advancement into leadership roles. Leadership opportunities. The internal pressure to adhere to the nice girl syndrome may lead women to avoid taking risks or displaying the assertiveness typically rewarded in leaders. Consequently, they may be overlooked for critical promotions. Social repercussions. Because you're prioritizing the happiness of other people above you, this comes at the expense of your own needs and desires, which can lead to superficial relationships where true feelings and opinions are seldom expressed. The psychologist we mentioned before, Dr. Albers, also explains that girls and women often feel that they need to appear a certain way to please others. That's why eating disorders and GGC often go hand in hand. People with the GGC do other self-destructive things in the name of beauty too. You might pursue plastic surgery to look like somebody else, spend lots of money you don't have on a stylish wardrobe, or misuse substances or medications in an attempt to alter your appearance. Look at the billion-dollar beauty industry that is constantly telling women you're not enough, and we have the solution. Anytime I open the TikTok app, I swear I find another reason to criticize or hate something about my appearance, which is why I don't really spend too much time scrolling on there. We can also talk about it from a sexuality point of view as well, where good girls are often expected to be a nymph, yet also act like a freak. What I mean is they're expected to be a virgin, save themselves for one man, and yet also be a freak in the sheets. I love how a very common narrative I see in the comment sections of men's and social media is them pointing out that women have a victim complex, but they say it like they are the victim. I'm not even going to get into the misrepresented statistic of women in divorces. What even is it? It's like women take 50% of all of men's earnings, or 50% of women take all of men's earnings, something like that, something ridiculous, but something that insinuates that men are the victim of women yet again. But not even to mention that women weren't even allowed to have their own bank account until I think it was the 70s. And not to also mention the fact that women are still today not treated equally in the workplace. When it comes to performing in the bedroom, the GGC can look like you prioritizing your partner's needs above yours. A topic that's trending right now that I also think is very fitting to the good girl complex is the case of Anna Paul and Addis Paul, specifically Addis Paul in this scenario. They are influencers that live in Australia's Gold Coast, and it was discovered that Anna's, who was a famous influencer, her brother is a convicted rapist and has raped multiple girls. He finds them off apps like Tinder. He gets them to sign a non-disclosure agreement. They have a relationship. He then becomes very toxic and emotionally abusive, and then he rapes them in their sleep. One of the girls who came out is so obviously a victim of the GGC. She is so sweet, so kind. She had originally consented to intercourse in her sleep. Eventually, because she was on medication, she was in a lot of pain. He was still doing so when she was in pain. Because she had consented at one point, she felt like she couldn't stand up and say, please stop, I'm literally in pain, like, use your brain, do you even care about me? Because I feel like if you cared about me, you wouldn't be trying to continue to do this in my sleep while I'm taking my medications and being in pain. That is one of the consequences of being the good girl. Michaela herself not also coming out for years about this story because she was so traumatized by the whole thing. And people will often victim blame and say, this is your fault, you should have stronger boundaries. But forgetting that sometimes there are costs of setting boundaries, especially with abusive and toxic, manipulative people. You're often made to feel bad, as I've been in a situation myself. You're made to feel bad for having a boundary. And then because you don't want to hurt their feelings, even though they're hurting your feelings in the first place, forcing yourself to adjust to their requests, adjust to their abuse, so that you're not stepping on anyone's toes. One thing that I do just want to get off my chest is that, do you think a guy would give a fuck about what you think in one of these situations? If a guy doesn't want to do something, usually he just won't do it. And that's because he can. A lot of women can't physically overpower men. A lot of men won't be demonized for yelling or raising their voice or even hitting their partners because it's just what men do, right? But when the roles are reversed, it's how dare you raise your voice? Not to go on about the Anna and Addis Paul situation, but if we look deeper into it, I also think Anna Paul could potentially be a victim of Addis Paul, her brother, as well. That is just something I've observed, but I could be wrong. The GGC can sometimes often be misrepresented as empowering as well. We think it's going to be the thing that gets us what we want. And it also encourages women to idolize things that actually just aren't important to us whatsoever. In my last episode on this podcast, we talked a lot about self-concept, and I mentioned how I had a few experiences in which men had chosen women over me. And obviously, when you're in a situation like that and you have that mindset of, if this person doesn't choose me, it means I'm lesser than, it means that that person's better than me, so I have to change myself in order to win that approval, when really the approval you're seeking is your own. It can be very damaging. Do you want to know what happened to the girl he chose over me? He cheated on her with someone else. And that's happened many times. In fact, I actually have a funny experience just recently, something that happened when I was in year 12. It was formal time and I was not the prettiest of teenagers. So I invited a guy I was working with to my formal as my date. I paid for his ticket, which was over $100 or something, which is very expensive back in the day. My salary was like, what, $15 an hour at a bloody cinema? To help assimilate him into my friendship group so that when the formal came, he didn't feel like a fish out of water, I took him to a party with my friends, and about an hour into it, I see him in the corner kissing one of my friends. I was like, oh, okay, what's the point in bringing you to my formal if you're just going to disrespect me in front of my friends like that? And okay, if you weren't interested in me, that's fine. Why did you say yes to coming to my formal? Like, duh. I ran into him recently at a gym that I used to go to, and I saw him and I didn't want to speak, but he's then like kind of stopped me and he was like, oh, hey, you're Kirsty, right? Oh my God, I think we used to work together. Yeah, at the cinema, right? I was like, yeah, like kind of playing dumb. Oh, I think so. Like in my head, I was like, I know exactly who you are and I don't want to speak to you. No, I don't have hard feelings, but why the hell would I want to speak to you? I don't even know you. But after that situation, he was like, oh, you look great. You're in really great shape. Hey, why don't we work out together? You can keep me motivated or whatever. Yeah, okay, sounds good. Lying through my teeth. No, I'm not going to work out with you. And also, of course, GGC, don't want to say anything that's going to hurt their feelings. So instead of just outright saying no, you say, yeah, and then just never follow through. After that, he then tried to add me on social media. And I thought, this guy really does not give a fuck. It's because in his brain, there was probably no consequences to asking. My point in saying this story is that it probably didn't even register in his head as a possibility that I may not want to hang out with him, that I would potentially say no and then not add him back on social media, that I should be gratified, right? Because how nice of him to pick me after all these years. So those are just some of the costs associated with the GGC. If that hasn't awoken you to the level of trauma it can subject you to, I highly encourage you to rewind and listen to it again, because this is your wake-up call. This is the day that you need to stop sacrificing yourself in order to be seen and approved a certain way. Now, rather than just me coming on here and saying that you just need to set more boundaries, you just need to be more confident and not care what other people say, which is very easy, what I'm going to say is we need to adopt a new self-concept and associate a new reward with it. We are staying good girls because we think there are rewards associated with it. I'm hoping that this video has just pointed out the costs associated with it, so now you can have some level of understanding of actually this is doing more harm than it is good. The reward that you think you're getting out of it, whether consciously or unconsciously, is the idea that you're going to be chosen by a mediocre man, that you're going to win respect in the workplace because that's what we were taught in school. How many times do we go to a parent-teacher interview and the teacher was like, Kirsty is very good. She is very quiet. She is very well behaved and manageable. Associating your value and worth as a human being with being quiet, manageable, and not having an opposing opinion to anything. We need to unwire those neurons in our brain that are saying that approval is good, that we are gaining anything from approval, because we're not. At this point, we are literally just killing ourselves. Women are literally losing years out of their lives because of this complex. So what's the opposing complex? Confident girl, the confident girl complex, not the bad girl complex, because I feel like that is the party of resistance. I don't want to be the bad girl because that's also going to take too much energy, and that to me is also caring what other people think. I like to call it the confident girl because that sounds much more self-centered. Confident women will often be associated as narcissists because they have an outward and inward expression of self-approval. They might admit that they think they're beautiful, and that is a sin in the GGC. To admit that you're beautiful is to be a sin, but to not be beautiful is also a sin. So you have to be working on your beauty, but you're not allowed to know it. A confident girl can still work on her beauty, but her identity is not centered around it, and she's not doing it for approval. She is detached from how she is perceived. She was doing it for herself. The reward for this is the mental peace and clarity you can gain. The reward for this is your sense of authenticity, your sense of self. The reward for this is actually genuine, authentic connections with your life. The reward for this is being so in tune with your feminine energy, with your own inner power, that you then have the ability to attract friendships, a romantic relationship that genuinely complements your human nature, not just your lack of boundaries, your loss of identity, and your need to please others above your own desires and free will. Because I don't have time for this podcast to be hours and hours and hours long, if you need help with the process of regulating your nervous system to adapt to a new self-concept, my OG program, the Feminine Embodiment Series, is available, and it's only $60. It is literally jam-packed with hours of masterclasses, EFT tapping, meditations, journaling, and affirmations so that you can literally rewire your brain, decondition yourself from the GGC, and tap into the power of your feminine energy. If you need that extra assistance and guidance, I'll leave the link below. A good question you can ask yourself right now is, how am I benefiting from this mindset? Ask yourself literally in this moment, here and right now. In what ways am I still demonstrating and acting out this concept, and how am I benefiting from it? If you think suffering is a good thing, you're still benefiting from it. If your worth and your value is peace and approval, you're benefiting from it. So what I want to do is question that. Are you really benefiting from suffering and struggling and hustling? Are you really benefiting from also being the opposing party in which you are resisting it by saying, I'm an independent baddie who doesn't need anyone to rely on? Because I'm a big believer in community. I feel like collectively we're all isolating ourselves a little bit. So I'm a really big believer in establishing a sense of community in which men and women can rely on each other. I'm also a big believer in equity over equality, which is where we acknowledge each other's differences, and rather than exploit them or see them as weaknesses, we actually play into the strengths of them. What I also like to do is reorientate women's relationship with being spoiled by men. I do believe that it should be an absolute non-negotiable because it is the best bet to assure that that man actually likes you. And I'm not talking about sugar baby, sugar daddy arrangements, by the way. I'm talking about evoking a man's natural desire to want to take care of you, which is why you need to see getting in touch with your authenticity as a reward. That can be one right there for you though. One of the benefits and rewards of getting in touch with your authenticity is your then open ability to get into a relationship with a man who truly values you, sees you, honors you, and serves you. And if you think that's a sexist or potentially matriarchal thing to say, I encourage you to look at some of my previous videos in which I do talk about the benefits of men serving women. So a few key concepts we discovered in this video is the cost of the GGC, your internal reward system, and how you're actually keeping yourself addicted to that identity. And a lot of us do it out of struggle. A lot of us do it out of coping. It's a coping mechanism. It's a behavior. It's one based in trauma though, and how we need to break free from it, not only to save our lives or save our asses, but to actually enjoy our experience as women on this planet. In last week's episode, I talked about self-concept and how I was personally done with associating life and more specifically money with struggle. But this goes for relationships as well. I'm just personally done with associating anything with struggle, because in my brain, there's honestly just no reward from it. I was literally in a state of chronic dysregulation and stress. I wasn't even getting the outward rewards from it. And sometimes it's just that little internal shift in thinking that you need in order to get the ball rolling in a different direction. Question what you think life should be and if it is really working for you. Because a lot of people will struggle and say, but that's just the way life is. Life is expensive, life is hard, life is a struggle. And then I say, what are you getting out of that? What's the reward for it? And if it's a victim complex, there you go, that might be your reward for it. Then ask yourself again, am I really benefiting from a victim complex, or can there be another way? You don't have to change your life outwardly just yet. Just start on the inside. Ask yourself questions, and that will help start breaking the cogs apart so you can start creating those new neural pathways. Then once you've done that, start regulating your nervous system to adapt to a new self-concept. If I was my dream woman, if I was living this life, doing this, doing that, who would I be and what would that look like and what would I think about myself? Ask those questions. We may never completely break free from that because I know it is very, very, very ingrained and prevalent. But I really do think that even just the smallest amounts of changes can have the best side effects. So I highly encourage you to take the leap and start breaking yourself free from it. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.